Rob Dauster here. I got Jeff Goodman with me.
Hell no.
John Fate.
Are we still live?
Field of 68 till I die.
I'm sorry, man. I blacked out.
Randolph Children.
DJ Khaled, you not a big DJ Khaled guy?
Hands thrown up and in.
Goodman needs to be fired all the time.
Josh Pastner.
You're going to beat people straight up.
You know the deal.
They have no swag. They have no nothing.
Terrell McNeil.
From the bluest of the blue bloods to the smallest of the mid-majors.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
Welcome to the Field of 68 After Dark on this 2024. I'm John Fanta. Rob Dauster is here, and we are ready for a refreshing hour of hoops takes. There is no offseason, and how fitting it is, Bobby, that in our intro, I think I heard something from Mr. Doug Gottlieb about how he's got no swagger, he's got none of that. Well, Wisconsin Green Bay's got swagger because the Phoenix have hired former Oklahoma State standout Doug Gottlieb, the media personality who's been with us on Field of 68. The coaching carousel does not stop, and after Sundance Wicks goes to Wyoming, Doug Gottlieb, who had been rumored before, takes the Green Bay job. It is reported that he will continue his media responsibilities, his daily show with Fox Sports Radio. What's your reaction to the Phoenix hiring our colleague, DG?
Well, one, it pretty much guarantees that Green Bay basketball is going to get more coverage and more attention than Green Bay basketball has ever gotten, probably in the totality of the history of the program, right? I think it is an innovative move by the Wisconsin Green Bay athletic director. What I'll say is this, Vince. One of the things that we've seen from mid-major basketball in recent years is that coaches are now head coaches are leaving programs that have had a decent amount of success to go take assistant positions in Power 5 leagues at this point, right? We are seeing the difficulties that arise when you are a mid-major program, one of the have-nots that doesn't have the level of NIL that some of the high major programs do, that doesn't have the exposure that the high major programs do, that can't afford to pay the players what some of these high major programs do. And you kind of put yourself in a situation where, you know, when you don't have the money to spend, how can you even compete, right? And when you get a kid and you go through the process and you recruit these freshmen and you bring them in and you develop them over a year or two and they end up being these superstar players at the mid-major level, boom, they're gone. Because if you're a really good player at the mid-major level and have a chance to be a starter on a Power 5 program, you're probably looking at a six-figure payday if you jump in the transfer portal, right? And how can you compete with that if you are a lower mid-major head coach? And I understand the difficulties that all of these guys are dealing with. And I think it's interesting and innovative and absolutely a risk for Green Bay to go out and hire a guy that is a radio personality to coach a Division I basketball program. But I also know that, one, Doug Gottlieb doesn't sleep, right? Like, I don't think that he's wired to sleep. I don't think that he's wired to rest. I don't think that he understands that, like, a human being needs a good, like, 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. Like, I think he just functions on cold brew and Red Bull and gets himself through the day that way. And two, I've had enough conversations with him over the years about basketball and about how to run a program and about the way that he would be a head coach at this level. Like, he's coached AAU basketball. His dad was a coach at that level for years. He's been a consultant for other programs when it comes to recruiting the portal. Like, he knows ball. If you ask him about anybody, pretty much any player at any level, he's going to have some kind of opinion about him because of the number of games that he's called on radio and TV. So I think it's a risk. I think it's an innovative way to do this. I think it's smart if you are thinking about the exposure the program's going to get. And I'm curious to see how this plays out. I'll tell you this, I'll be rooting for Doug. I hope he does well there. I also tell you this, with Chris Mack gone and Matt McCall gone and Laval Jordan gone and Doug Gottlieb gone, like, we're really going to have to remake our intro. We're going to have to put producer Trevor to work to kind of figure out how to be able to get this thing going next year, man. We're going to be working you to death this upcoming season, Fanta. We have lots of shifts available. Reach out to me. Hey, if you're a former player or former coach that wants to get into After Dark, that wants to get into media, hit me up, man. We got spaces available. We got time slots. We can fit you in.
There's nothing that Trevor and Dagan can't do. They've had to rework the intro mid-season before, but I digress. Yeah. when we think about this coaching carousel, Jeff Linder takes the lead Texas Tech assistant job with Grant McCaslin, right? And so then you spin it off with Sundance Wicks after a 15-win turnaround at Green Bay. They were miserable in 2022-23. Wicks is a star, by all accounts, a really good coach. He takes this job here at Wyoming. So that's the trickle-down effect. We saw it with Dan Engelstad from Mount St. Mary's going to Syracuse. And I think that that's the bigger picture item in this sport right now, Rob, is that the carousel's never going to end, and sometimes there's going to be unexpected openings because coaches just see the writing on the wall that it's going to be very difficult for them to compete in their league. If you're going to be a head coach, Dan Hurley alluded to this, right? He said, at the end of the day, Luke Murray and Kamani Young, my assistants who are up there for those head coaching jobs, he's got Tom Moore, who's invaluable as well. But Kamani and Luke, it's going to take a really high-level mid-major job for them to leave for the head coaching ranks, in his opinion, because of, one, how much he's paying at UConn, two, how much they're winning, and three, how much of a disadvantage you are if you just take any head coaching job.
Yeah, well, a lot of those, like I know Luke specifically has turned down head coaching opportunities with jobs that he's been offered where he's interviewed. He's turned down interviews at programs that some people would consider good mid-major jobs. The fact of the matter is that if either of those two guys specifically, now this isn't true for every high major assistant or Power 5 assistant, but for those two specifically, there's not many jobs outside of the Power 5 plus the A10 plus the Mountain West plus some of these other like really good, really well-funded mid-major programs where they're not taking a pay cut to be able to go get it, to be able to go take that job. So you can go try to find one of these mid-major jobs, try to scrap your way up, try to figure out a way where in 4 years you got a shot at a high major, or you can ride this wave and, go try to win a third straight championship. Like I know where I would want to be if I was somebody in that situation. So I mean, I get it, man. It's not easy at the mid-major ranks. I think that we're going to see a talent drain of coaches, and they're not the only ones. Like there's, I think you can probably attest to this too. Like I feel like half of the assistant coaches that we would consider like really, really good, really, really high level, got some kind of offer or some kind of interview this off season, or in the last couple off seasons, and kind of said, yeah, you know what, I think I'm good where I'm at right now.
Yeah, it's a great point. We wish Doug the very best. We're rooting for the Phoenix of Green Bay. He's done so much for our network. I'm sure it isn't the last that we've seen of him, at least making a special appearance on the field of 68. And he'll continue his daily Fox Sports radio show. And hey, you just said it.
Here's my last question. Doug used to come on our show and he would have like his dinner. And between every break or every time that he'd be sitting there and watching it and it would cut away from him, you could hear him eating in the background. I just wonder if he's going to bring his dinner with him, like on the sideline. If we're going to be seeing Green Bay be playing against like Robert Morris at home and he's just got like a plate of Chinese food that he's eating during timeouts while he's trying to coach up his team. That's all I want to say. We'd be willing to do that.
Doug, do not bring orange chicken to the opening press conference. Okay, keep the food to the food room. Keep the food to the meal room. But eating is very important. Doug Gottlieb does not sleep, but he does eat, and he drinks a lot of different fluids. So we wish Doug the very best. It'll be interesting to see how they compete in the Horizon League, which is a league that there is an open door in that you can – there's some really good programs, but it's not unreasonable for him to be able to make a move with upward trajectory. And you said it, Green Bay has never had more coverage as a basketball program than they're getting right now with this move. Hey, let's talk about the big headline thus far this week. Great Osobor, the Utah State star, the top player in the Mountain West, 18 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists per game. A huge year. Shot close to 60% from the floor. Perimeter game, a different story. After a long sweepstakes, a winding road, Osobor's following his coach, Danny Sprinkle, and he's going to be a Washington Husky. But here's the kicker. The deal that he is playing for is worth over $2 million. This is a seismic deal for Osobor, which led to a lot of reaction in the sport of college basketball. So, Rob, Great Osobor is going to get his. We've already discussed this on the DTF pod, which is in your feeds, folks. I'm not going to ask about players getting criticized because in no world should they be. But does Osobor going to Washington for over $2 million change the market for others who are potentially coming back to college?
I think that it opens the eyes of somebody like a Coleman Hawkins, like an Alex Cameron is probably a bad example, but some of these guys that are in the draft, Jalen Wells that are in the draft that are also in the transfer portal, right? A Cam Christie from Minnesota, because it shows you what you can kind of get if you're on the open market. And I think that for the most part, that is more than a lot of those guys would be able to get if they were playing in the NBA. The biggest thing is that I don't know. A lot of that has to do with the amount of money that is available in the collective. And I think one of the things that we saw with Washington this year is that they went after a number of players, weren't able to get some of those guys, and as a result, they were flush with funds and needed to make a splash. And considering that Danny Sprinkle already had this relationship with Great Osobor, and he knew who he was up against when it came to trying to land him, I think that is what created this situation more than anything else, right? Like, I don't know if this is something where $2 million for one of the best transfers is going to be replicable. For example, I think most people have Kadari Richmond as the number one transfer player in this class, and that's about double what he is getting from St. John's. So I think that this has a lot more to do with this specific situation for Great Osobor than what it's going to be for the general transfer moving forward. But it does show you like how you can you're able to use, if you have good representation and you're smart about the way that you go about going through this transfer process, and you're smart about the way that you would for someone like that has their name in the draft, entering the transfer portal while you are evaluating your options and testing the NBA draft waters. Like, if you're smart about the way that you can do this, you can capitalize on it. You can make quite a bit of money in the collegiate ranks. Now, the question of whether or not this is something that is sustainable is a completely different conversation. It's the same thing as this NIL funded event that's going to be happening in Las Vegas. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's called like the Players Era Festival, hosted by MGM Grand and T-Mobile Arena. Shout out to BetMGM. Shout out to MGM for finding a way to be able to get this thing done. But at some point, you have to wonder how all of this stuff continues to be funded without revenue sharing, which is why I believe at some point, like revenue sharing, at some point in the very near future, revenue sharing is going to be a thing. It just that's to me the biggest question mark. It's not whether or not Great Osobor deserves the money, right? Like, the value of something is what somebody is willing to pay for it. If Washington's willing to pay $2 million or $2.2 million or whatever it is for Great Osobor, that's what he's worth to them, right? My question is, how is this sustainable, and how does this continue to be funded year over year over year if there is no return on investment? It's not like the people paying in the collective are getting money out of it as a result of it, right? It's not like it's not like me paying Great Osobor to promote the Field of 68, and then as a result, me getting more viewers and more eyeballs on it as a result, right? Like, I don't know where the money, where's the return on investment here for the people that are donating to this collective? Is it just as simple as I'm going to enjoy the team that I support winning? Is that the basis of it? So that's why there's got to be revenue sharing at some point. It's a long way of me saying that.
Look, Osobor's father is a taxi driver. His mother is an elderly caregiver. For Great Osobor, this is beyond great. This is a dream coming true. In college, he's going to make a ton of money for his family. It's a life-changing thing for him. That being said, the return on investment would be to be a Big Ten contender and make the NCAA tournament, because the person who's giving this money, the people funding the Washington program, want to see winning success. But like anything, when something gets changed majorly, there is an initial period of buy, or give, or go ahead and be all in on something. I liken it to Bitcoin, where there was just nonstop frenzy around that. And is there still today? Not to the same degree, not anything to the same degree. I agree with you. Revenue sharing is needed, Rob. Great Osobor is capitalizing on his value. Is he actually worth over $2 million? No. But I don't think other players are worth the $1 million that they're getting or the $800,000 that they're getting. But I understand why they're getting it, and I love that they're getting it, because if I was in their shoes, I would want the same thing. But to me, you would want to say, well, Washington's now going to be a really winning team in the Big Ten. But when I look at the rest of their roster and I see Tyler Harris from Pepperdine and DJ Davis from Butler, and Luis Courtwright from Rhode Island and Chris Conway from Oakland, Makai Mason as well from Rice, like, I see some solid players. But right now, Rob, if I put you against the wall, I said, okay, Washington, NCAA tournament team or not, I'd probably say in year one in the Big Ten under Danny Sprinkle, it's unlikely.
Yeah, that's I don't want to say unlikely, but I do think that it is a situation where, at best, you say that they are on the bubble, right? Like I'll give Danny Sprinkle the benefit of the doubt, seeing what he's done the last 2 years at Montana State, and then in his first season at Utah State, when nobody thought that they were going to do this at Utah State. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt here for year one, but this is not something where you look at it and say, "Woo, yeah, they're going to spend $3 million this year on their roster," and they have absolutely gotten the results that you would expect from that level of budget. I just, if he ends up being a top 25 team with this Washington roster, we're going to talk about him in the Coach of the Year conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think at the end of the year, you'd say they're right on the bubble, which means better chance not. But Danny Sprinkle's been remarkable in his rise, and I'm not going to doubt him that much. Hey, this past year, the Big Ten had question marks after Purdue and Illinois. The league has question marks again. And some of those biggest question marks nationally come in this league. There's some good teams. What will determine if they end up being great teams? We'll answer those questions with some of the biggest questions next.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay booster too from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark. John Fanta, Rob Dauster with you on this Tuesday night. Happy WNBA opening night around the country. Jeff Goodman is watching the Indiana Fever, powered by Caitlin Clark, meet up with the Connecticut Sun at Mohegan Sun on this wonderful Tuesday evening, which means that, Rob, you're putting up with me for an hour.
It's a much better hour to spend with you, John, than it is to spend with Jeff. Look, you bring positivity to my life instead of bringing everything down. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that out of you.
So let's talk about one of the big brand programs in the country with still one of the guys that's doing it and doesn't appear to be slowing down, because he says every time he can't think about retirement. It's Tom Izzo in Michigan State. This is a Big Ten-centric segment to start, at least, because there are some major questions in the Big Ten to answer this upcoming season. The Spartans got better today. They pick up a commit from Longwood transfer Zeman Zapala, 7-footer, 240-pound center, averaged close to 10 points and 6 rebounds per game, only 17 minutes per game, so didn't play a lot. But Zeman Zapala is now in East Lansing. You have said the Spartans front court, an area of question for you. Zapala figures to help that out. Also has been at Utah State. What are your thoughts on this commit? What are your thoughts on Michigan State?
Well, for starters, you say that they got better. Are we positive that they did? Are we positive that this dude is going to play in 3 seasons at Utah State? He played a grand total of 45 basketball games and never averaged more than a point and a half. Fanta. Okay, we're not exactly talking about adding Cooper Flag to the mix here. Okay, but what Michigan State needed on this roster was size, interior presence, a 5-man. Madi Sissoko is gone. Malik Hall is gone. And I don't know if Michigan State fans fully trust the development of Xavier Booker, if he's even a 5-man, Carson Cooper, Jackson Kohler. So what they really wanted was Tom Izzo to get out there in the portal and find a center, right? Get out there and see if you can get in the mix with somebody like a Norchad O'Meara, who didn't end up going there, with someone like a Cliff Amori, who didn't end up going there, with some of these other top centers that were putting their names in the portal. And that didn't end up happening. They did land Frankie Fiddler, and I do think frankly Fiddler is going to be a really good player at Michigan State. But they needed a 5-man, and they went out and they landed a 5-man. And they got a guy that is 7 foot 240, and you know that Tom Izzo is going to like big bodies. I am not convinced that is the answer that they needed, but I'm also not convinced that there isn't already enough on that roster, right, to be able to be a top 25 kind of a team. And maybe I'm just on my own planet, and maybe I need to stop, taking the edibles that are now legal to be taken in the state of New Jersey. But give me Xavier Booker, a former 5-star that's going to be there for a second season. Play some small ball with Cohen Carr at the 5. Trust in the development of Jeremy Fears, right? And just see what you got, man. Like I get some of the hesitancy to head into a season without an elite 5-man, but I don't know if you need it in this day and age. Am I off base here? Like Tom Izzo's been doing this for long enough that I think that it is fair to sit here and say it is wrong to question a guy that is going to end up being a Hall of Famer in this business.
Well, I mean, we've questioned John Calipari, and he's a Hall of Famer. We've questioned others.
But we don't like Coach Cal, according to the commenters. That's the only reason we question him. We don't question Tom Izzo because we like him.
Well, look, Tom Izzo is very likable because he speaks his mind. He doesn't care what anybody thinks. But when I think Michigan State and Tom Izzo, I typically think there's a reason why they're in the Champions Classic every year. You know, they are, under him, have been a blue blood type of program. If they haven't earned that status in their many glory years, but and the amount of second weekends, the amount of Final Four trips that he's led them on. But this Michigan State team does not look like a Final Four team. They don't look close to that. They look like a good team that can make the tournament and probably be in a 7, 10, 8, 9 type of game. Look, Frankie Fiddler was a great ad. I mean, that was a really nice transfer portal ad. Fiddler had a lot of interest. He'll fill that wing slot. He'll be able to score, and he can stretch the floor as well. Cohen Carr, I'm bullish on his development with an offseason and like the upside there. But at the end of the day, like you're counting on this kid that they bring in. You're counting on Xavier Booker. Like Xavier Booker was thought to be a guy who was going to come into Michigan State. This time last year, Rob, when we were talking about the Spartans, we said Xavier Booker's going to answer a lot of the questions that this team had in the front court. And so now with the amount of guard play they have, they should be able to piece it all together. That did not happen. So the other element is, are we going to see Jeremy Fears and Jaden Akins be consistent? It's different when you go from third or fourth guard to now surefire first and second. So I'm asking a lot of questions with this Michigan State team. Do I give Izzo the benefit of the doubt on making the tournament? Of course, they're going to make the tournament, but I don't think they're a top 25 team. I do not think that they are a top 25 team.
Well, a lot of it, if they are going to be a top 25 team, a lot of it hinges on the development of some of the young guys that they have, right? Who's going to take the next step? Specifically Xavier Booker and Jeremy Fears, that sophomore class. How good are some of the freshmen that they have coming in? I get it. I get the concerns. Like I'm not blind to that. But one of the criticisms that we see of a lot of coaches, and one of the things that a lot of fans say their biggest issue with in the era of the transfer portal is that you don't have that continuity. You don't trust the player development. You don't have the opportunity to see guys grow year over year over year in a specific system. And I that's what you see with this Michigan State team, right? That's what you're seeing with this group. And maybe it's because Tom Izzo is being difficult and stubborn and he doesn't want to lean into the portal. But you got a 5-star in Xavier Booker that can play the 5. Now, the biggest question I have, it's kind of similar to the Mike Woodson stuff, and I guess we'll probably talk about that in a little bit. But will he be willing to play somebody at the 5 that isn't a big physical bruising 5? Like, will you be willing to go small ball, right? And I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't know if he's willing to go all the way in there. So that, to me, that would be my biggest question mark. But yes, for this to be a national champion, if that's where we're setting the level of expectation right now with Michigan State, like, is this a national championship Final Four kind of a team? No, it's not.
Let's move to Purdue, okay? Because in the post Zach Edey, the first season with Edey now gone, now you wonder here what exactly they're going to look like, how they're going to play. I mean, they're a team, they're in a lot of top 10s around the country, depending on which national pundit you ask. And if they're not in the top 10, they're right beyond that. Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer are back. Miles Colvin, Caleb First, Trey Kaufman, Wren. Not to mention, some interesting additions for this team. Are you of the class that Purdue is going to be able to still be a top 10 type of team? Do you think that they're the best team in the Big Ten?
Best team in the Big Ten. I think that they're going to be in that conversation. I think that, I'm looking at it right now. They're going to be up there, man. They're going to be up there. I'm buying them. I think that what we're going to see out of this Purdue team is maybe the best backcourt in college basketball, right? Like, I don't think that is an exaggeration to say that junior year Braden Smith, who we said on the show could be an All-American caliber player last year, right? Junior year Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, after hopefully spending a year or a summer in the weight room. I'm buying Trey Kaufman Wren. I'm buying Miles Coleman. I think Cam Heidi's going to be here for a breakout season. They're going to have bench development somewhere, right? Like, I don't think that you can just roll into a season with those 5 guys, but like Will Berg has gotten a lot of people are expecting him to kind of be like that next 7'3" monster that they have coming in. There's some pretty good freshmen coming into the program. I just trust Matt Painter to find a way to be able to develop his guys. Like, how many coaches in college basketball are better at finding guys that they can fit into what they want to do and then developing them over 2, 3, 4 years into players that end up being all league caliber guys? I don't know if there's anybody better than Matt Painter at that. And I understand that there are some physical limitations with Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, right? But you give me those 2 guys, you give me Trey Kaufman right at the 5, and you let me bet on Miles Coleman and Cam Heidi taking a big leap this year, and I'm in. I think that this is a top 15 kind of a team. And I'm in on them, man. I think that this is going to be a really, really good year once again for Purdue.
Yeah, I think that they will be a team that I'm going to say right now gets a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. I know it's way, way, way too early, but I'll be interested to see if they can go on a tournament run with the guys that have been a part of a run to a national championship game, but the centerpiece of that not being back. More than anything, it's just going to be really interesting to see how Matt Painter, who is a technician and who talked this time last year about how he's not going to make sweeping changes to his system. When you lose a player like Zach Edey, you're going to be different. You're going to make changes. But Smith and Lawyer are killers. Those guys are big time. Colvin should only get better. And I think Cam Heidi, if we're looking at the Big Ten, he is a prime breakout candidate of the breakout candidates in that league, which leads us to another Big Ten team here while we've got 2 minutes. I want to know from you what you have made of Brad Underwood in Illinois' offseason.
I thought that they would have more success pulling some bigger names out of the portal. They went after some big names. They went after some big name recruits. They went after some big name players that were in the portal, and they missed on a number of them. That's not to say that I think that they're going to struggle, right? I do like the framework of a roster that has Ty Rodgers, Kylan Boswell, Kerry Booth, who I think is one of these upside guys that is going to be better than a lot of people realize. I get the Jake Davis commitment, like he's a big shooter that really knocked it down, shot the hell out of it at Mercer. And the Ben, I'm gonna butcher your last name, Humrickhouse, whatever it is, Ben Humrickhouse. According to our producer Trevor, I think that he's going to be a good player as well. I know he started in an AAI program, but I'm buying the ability of Underwood to kind of identify guys that work there. And then Trey Wright from Louisville as well. Like, I think that they're going to be good. But when you lose a Terrence Shannon, when you lose a Marcus Domask, when you lose a Quincy Guerrier, when you lose so many of the guys that allowed you to function the way that he wanted to play last year, it's a tough sell for me to say that they're going to be at that same level, right? Look, Marcus Domask was a first-team all Big 12 caliber player. Terrence Shannon was a first-team All-American caliber player. And Coleman Hawkins might have been arguably the most talented / skilled / versatile guy in the Big 12. It's very difficult to replace all that. So you're basically building a brand new team. And I don't see where the star power is with this group. I think that's the way I kind of summarize the offseason for Illinois. They'll be good, but it's going to be a step back from what they were last season.
You know what's going to be really interesting, Rob, is you're not just bringing in schools. You're bringing in schools that are going to be tough for a variety of ways. Number one, UCLA is looking for a bounce back year. I'm talking about the Big Ten here. And you know Mick Cronin's going to be able to have a bounce back season. All signs point to that. He's not having 2 bad years in a row. Eric Musselman just injects a brand new energy to USC. The addition of Desmond Claude was big time, and that's not the only one that he's brought in. I like that hire. I think it only benefits USC basketball. Washington, they're going to be relevant. And Oregon, I'm really bullish on Oregon and what they've got coming back. I think the world of Jackson Shellstad. They brought in TJ Bamba. Keyshawn, I'm going to butcher this last name again. You know the last name? Barthélemy. I like him as well. Barthélemy. And that team, they could have very well been in the second weekend of the tournament this past year. They had Creighton beat. And Fali Dante had a lot to do with that, as did Jermaine Cuisinart. But I'll tell you what, I think that's the thing that's interesting about the Big Ten, is that now Illinois, Purdue, Michigan State, there's not a lot of wiggle room here. These West Coast editions, these programs are primed to be in a really good place.
I'm so not ready for a world where we have to talk about Oregon and UCLA and USC and Washington competing with Purdue and Illinois and Indiana and Michigan State and Michigan at the top of the bit. I'm just so not ready for that world, man. But you are right. I think Oregon, if you were to make me pick one team that I think is the most undervalued team in all of college basketball right now, I think that it would be hard for me to not look at Oregon and pick the Ducks.
We'll talk about some of those other candidates coming up later in the show after this break. The new head coach of DePaul. Could DePaul be arriving to a new point? Could they be a relevant team in the Big East Conference? Well, they have a relevant head coach, one who has won. Chris Holtmann, the new head coach at DePaul, with an intriguing staff as well, joins Rob Dauster for a one-on-one next.
By now, you guys have surely heard about Autograph, an app founded by Tom Brady with the intention of disrupting the way that fans consume content covering their favorite teams. Here's how the app works. All of the podcasters and bloggers and digital creators covering a team have their content sent to that team's page in Autograph. Instead of having to bounce from site to site or try to navigate the only safe for work spaces that are left on X, you just scroll through Autograph. This isn't a hard sell. This is the truth. I'm a UConn fan. I use the Autograph app to keep up with the writers I read and the pods that I listen to. The best part is that every piece of content that you consume gives you reward points. The more you get, the more chances you have at things like discounted tickets and signed memorabilia. Here's the best part. We've partnered with Autograph to donate $1 to the V Foundation every time someone downloads the app using the code F68 with a minimum of $2,500 getting donated. The app is free, so download using the code F68 and help us raise some money and give Autograph a try. I promise you it will be worth it. And while we're here, a quick reminder, make sure that you subscribe to the Daily. We have new landing pages with deep dives into each coaching change, as well as a tracker that provides scouting reports on the transfers that have entered the portal that you are going to want to know about. It's just $50 for the year, which means that for less than $1 per week, you get analysis that our insiders send direct to your inbox every single morning. Hit the link below to subscribe. Now let me welcome on to the Field of 68's Off the Carousel series, new DePaul head coach Chris Holtmann. Chris, it looks like you got some beautiful weather out there in Chicago right now, man. How you doing? It's great to see you.
Chicago in the summer, Rob. Chicago in the summer, man. It is it's beautiful right now. It's beautiful weather. We've had a string of great, beautiful days here. Not a better city in the summer than Chicago. I've always felt like that, but it's great to be with you. Let me ask you this. What do guys in your world right now, what are they doing? Are they doing a lot of this kind of stuff? You finally got a little bit of downtime. Like, what's going on in your world?
So what I did for the last month was make Goodman go and try to break all the news and find out all the stuff about transfers. And I was the guy that was over at the fishing ponds down at the lake, sitting there pretending like I was busy and working. Cause that's the great thing about phones is I can do anything I need to from a phone. So it's like, if I got to jump on a call, I could just jump on and be like, hey, yeah, you know what? I'm out right now. I'm running errands. You know what I mean? I'm enjoying the weather.
You're smarter than Goodman.
That's low bar to clear there, Chris. Low bar to clear there. Before we get started, just is there anything that you want to get out now about the when you were hired by DePaul? Like, I don't want Goodman surprising you on a podcast with any kind of stories to try to embarrass you. Is there anything that we need to talk about here that you can get out in front of that Goodman's not going to try to dig up on
you? Yeah. No, there's not. No, there's not. It was a the DePaul process was, you know how these things, Rob, work, man. They they're usually pretty quick. You never go to campus. And this one was a little bit more prolonged because I just wanted to vet the situation as thoroughly as I could. And some of it was just because of, right, the track record of this program for the last couple decades. So I just was trying to really vet the process and also had the flexibility to say, nah, I'm not sure I want to coach, or I'm not sure I want to coach right now, or I'm going to wait. It's early in the process. But no, really the conversations with Dwayne Peavy, who's our athletic director, and our president, Rob Manuel, that was the turning point for me.
Yeah, so Dwayne is a guy that came from Kentucky. He's seen the best of the best when it comes to a basketball program and how to run it. What was it about that process that convinced you to take this job, right? That convinced you that DePaul was the place that you needed to be?
I think I just sensed a really hungry and motivated athletic director and school president and board, the backing of the board in terms of, okay, hey, what do we need to do to create a relevant college basketball program in this new climate we're in right now? And when you look at it, since we've joined the Big East, old Big East, new Big East, the average wins on a season have been around 11. The conference wins have been less than 4, 16, 18, 20 game schedule. It's been less than 4. So a lot of really difficult years and difficult struggles. And I think out of that has come a perspective on, okay, hey, this is what we need to do moving forward. And this is our vision. And I just really believed that, Dwayne saw it, obviously, at Kentucky, seen it at a high level. I did talk to Cal about Dwayne through the process, and Cal couldn't have said better or nicer, more positive about Dwayne and his enthusiasm and his leadership and his vision. And that helped as well.
I would call DePaul. It's not a rebuilding job; it's a building job, right? You've kind of gotten this thing down to the studs, and you have to find a way to build it in your own image. What's the first step? Like, how do you? The Big East Conference is loaded with quality coaches. Obviously, you have the program that is kind of at the top of the sport right now in UConn in the same league. How do you get this thing going? How do you build it? How do you get DePaul to where it's at a point where you're now competing for NCAA tournaments and you're competing at the top of this league?
Well, I would just begin by saying I do think we'll look at what UConn has done these last 2 years. In 20 to 30 years in this new climate, Rob, we'll look at it with way more admiration and respect than we do even now. And most people look at their 2 year run and say it's been incredible. But when you think about how much transition happens within rosters nowadays, I think we'll look back in 20 years and saying that was incredible. But they're at the top, right? But there's so many really good programs. For us, it always begins with the people. It always begins with the people. I just think when you're building something, as you mentioned, it always begins with the people. When I took over Gardner Webb, it was a massive build, and it was about the people that were going to be willing to grind and really have a positive approach. Like when you're in tough situations, if you're around people every day who aren't positive, it's really, really difficult. So I really tried to target positive, high energy people on my staff and players. And it took us a minute. It took us not until year 3, and then we flipped and turned the corner. In the middle of year 3, we didn't even know if we were going to. And then we won 11 of our last 12 games. So it always begins with the people, and we're really looking for positive, energetic people and people who are going to focus on the real positives of your job and your situation and what DePaul can be, and aren't going to completely ignore some of the challenges, but it's not going to be the focus. And I think when you do that, and when you look for a group that's unselfish as players and that's talented and that have upside. We focused on guys we believe have upside and also have the potential to be with us multiple years.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to ask is I think so much of what specifically UConn, but you also look at places like Kansas and you look at places like Baylor, where in an era where you're kind of there's a lot of cycling through with the transfer portal and NIL and all that. How do you build this into something where you can get that culture, where you can get those players that can kind of take ownership of the program, where you get guys that are there for 2, 3, 4 years that can kind of uh, take it as their own, right? I've always believed that it's great to have a coach that wants to lead a program, but the best teams always have player-led teams and player-led locker rooms that are in sync with that coaching staff. How do you do that in this day and age when you're building from the bottom?
For sure. There's no question that's consistent with every high level program is teams that are player led. We have looked for guys and targeted guys that have some sort of connection to DePaul if they have multiple years, to try to create some roster continuity. Could be a regional connection. Hey, I want to come back and be close to home. I want to be in Chicago. I grew up in and around, we took a point guard from Drake. He, grew up an hour from, less than an hour from here. And I think looking for people who, a couple of them, hey, they wanted to finish their college career at DePaul because it was the city they like. And also they like the idea of getting the degree and getting their DePaul degree here. I just think in today's world, if you're trying to build a level of, you're not going to have a consistent roster from year to year, but if you're trying to build a consistent roster, what are the things that would pull a young man and attract a young man to a specific university? And then you have to fight like hell to build an incredible culture in relationship-driven place that you think will mean something when it gets down to whether kids are going to stay or go.
Mm-hmm. Winning is always going to help as well, right? When you put together a team that is you're building towards something and you see those W's starting to pile up, That's the best way to solve all the problems, right? Is to win a bunch of games.
Sure.
Um, you've coached against DePaul before when you were at Butler. Now you are at DePaul. Is there a difference in terms of maybe what you saw from the outside and now what you are experiencing now that you are in it, now that you are part of the program?
Well, I don't think Wintrust, where we play, is a terrific arena. It's where the NBA Combine's at. Um, it's a terrific arena. It's 15, 20 minutes from campus. I didn't have the chance to coach in that. I was at Butler when they were still playing out at Allstate. So I think that's a really added plus. I don't think I appreciated fully. DePaul's located in a terrific part of Chicago called Lincoln Park. I had never been to DePaul's campus. It's a great small campus, but a beautiful area and a really fun and attractive area for young people. I don't think I fully understood that. Our new practice facility that is in the works is going to be critical for us, Rob, critical. And it was a big part of my decision to come here. It's 2 years away, 2+ years away, but it's going to be state of the art. It's going to be phenomenal.
Last one I got for you, then I'll let you go. What percentage was your decision to bring Laval in order to raise the fashion level of everybody on the DePaul staff? Was that 90%, 95%? Where was that level?
He's a sharp dress dude. He is a sharp dress. You mentioned he raised the media's fashion, and we both said that's a pretty low bar with that. But yeah, he brings a level of that for sure. This whole casual trend in college basketball, it's interesting to see the different programs that have kind of held true to the old way of doing it, and others who have taken casual attire to a new level. So we'll see what that looks like moving forward for us.
Are you going to be suit and ties on the sideline this year?
We're going to have that discussion. We are going to have a discussion. I had it at Ohio State, and they voted for casual, but we'll have that discussion for sure.
I'm just picturing Laval on the sideline with like the quarter zip and the suit and tie jacket underneath the quarter zip.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh yeah. You'll see that before long from somebody for sure.
Yeah, there you go. Listen, Holt, it's always a pleasure, man. Congratulations on the job. It's nice to see you smiling. It's nice to see you happy. And I got to get to Chicago, man. I got to come check it out. I got to be down there at Lincoln Park. I expect the full tour when I make it down.
We would love to have you. We really would, Rob. We'd love to have you. I think it's a place you'll look at and say, well, this got some nice possibilities, and we really believe that. But thanks for having me on. Thanks for what you guys do for college hoops.
Whether you are a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well-being and proper recovery for top-notch performance. After a 6-month season loaded with cross-country travel, I can promise you that proper recovery is a priority for me these days. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of the Field of 68. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or the EE system. If you haven't heard of the EE system yet, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in New Jersey or at one of the hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. If you're interested in experiencing the EE system technology for yourself, go to unifiedhealing.com/unified68 to learn more and find a center near you. That's UNIFYD healing.com/UNIFYD, the number 6, the number 8. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including the EE system.
We thank Chris Holtmann for his time as we welcome you back to After Dark on this Tuesday night. Rob, quickly, what did you learn from talking with Chris Holtmann, and do you think this could work?
He talked me into the fact that I really need to get to Chicago in the summertime. He
Yeah.
promised that if we go, we have like an all access tour of Lincoln Park. He said that he's got all the restaurants picked out. He's got all the spots picked out. He's got all the places for us to hang out. So I think we're gonna have to make a visit to the DePaul campus at some point in this summer. I know that if we go in the winter, if we go for a game in January, I got a feeling like the weather is going to be a little bit different. The vibes are going to be a little bit different in the city of Chicago when it is 9 degrees and windy versus when it is 80 degrees and sunny. But no, I thought it was really interesting that he opted to take the DePaul job over other offers that he had because of the belief that he had in the administration and specifically Dwayne Peavy. So I really like the staff that he put together. I think that I think that Holtmann's outfits are going to take a step up, having LaVall Jordan on staff with him. And I don't know. I'm going to be very curious to see what I'm still of the mindset that Chris Holtmann is a very, very, very good basketball coach. And I think this is the first time that we can look at DePaul and say they have a very, very, very good basketball coach in a long time.
Great stuff. Let's turn to the SEC. Southeastern Conference announced the opponent lineup, who will be home, who will be away for these matchups. No dates, no TV yet. It's too early for that. But they announced that on Monday. And we learned that Kentucky and Arkansas, who were likely scheduled to play one time based on the computer formula that's being used in this conference slate, that Kentucky and Arkansas will play one time, but it will be in Lexington, meaning John Calipari will return to Rupp Arena when Arkansas visits Kentucky. Rob, I think it's safe to say this is the most anticipated conference game in all of college basketball before we even know how anything else lines up. What do you anticipate Lexington's reception of Cal being?
I think it's going to be that's interesting. I think that we will see cheers. I think we will see applause, right? I don't think that he went out on bad terms. I don't think he did it the wrong way. And I don't think it's something where the fan base wanted him to stay and he left. Like, this isn't like an Ed Cooley leaving Providence situation. This isn't a Chris Beard leaving Texas Tech situation. I think that the Kentucky fans kind of wanted him to go. Would they have liked him to end up at a place like a USC instead of within their own conference with half of their roster? Probably. But I do think that they've ended up in a situation where they got a coach that they want to get behind and a program they want to get behind. And there's a level of excitement within the Kentucky fan base that it feels like we haven't seen in a long time. But I will say this. If there's one, you remember how last year when the schedule came out, the first thing that we did was we circled that noon tip at January 27th in Providence. That was the very first thing we circled on the schedule, said we will be there. I can tell you right now that unless that game is played on like the night of my daughter's birthday or something like that, unless there is no possible way for me to find a way to get to Lexington for that game, that we will be there and we will doing a Field of 68 After Dark live from Rupp Arena after that game. I don't know if there's a conference matchup that I want to see in person more than that game right there.
Are you more bullish on Arkansas in this upcoming season than Kentucky?
I think I like Kentucky's roster a little bit more. As of this moment, I expect Arkansas to fill out a little bit. I think that they'll still probably go out and get some guys that can be role players. And I would not be surprised if that Arkansas, that the Tyson chicken budget, so to speak, found a way to be able to add some of these guys that are coming back from the NBA draft that are still in the portal. So I think that there's still room to change. I think that looking at these rosters right now, I would say that Arkansas probably has the best player, right, in Janelle Davis. And they probably are the most solidified at the point guard spot / lead guard spot with Nelly Davis. But I think I like the roster build that Kentucky has a little bit more than the roster build of Arkansas right now. What I mean by that is you have veterans that have done it at a high level up and down this lineup and, going to the bench, right? Kentucky goes 9 deep more or less. And most of those guys have proven the ability to play the Division I level already. Some of them at the high major level, Otega Owe, Kirk Risa specifically. I don't know if you necessarily have that with Arkansas. I think there's a lot of freshmen that are going to be asked to play big time roles for them. Jonas Adu is going to be awesome, right? He's going to be a really good 5-man. Nelly Davis is going to be really, really good. But beyond that, you're asking for young guys to play big roles. And I don't know if I necessarily trust them in that situation or trust Cal to be able to get the best out of them in those situations just yet. But honestly, I think both of them are like borderline top 25 teams right now. So it's going to be another thing. We all thought that the Georgetown Providence game might actually mean something. Well, it turns out we saw an NIT team and the team that finished second to last in the Big East playing each other. I don't think it'll be quite that bad for either of these two teams, but I don't think we're going to be going down and seeing a top 10 matchup like we did when Kentucky played Tennessee or when Kentucky played Auburn last year.
Yeah. The Kirk Risa experiment, now going to Lexington is just so fascinating because we have seen, just the trials, the tribulations of Risa. But Kobe Brea, I love the get there, and Otega Away, a winner, a tough guy, a guy who's going to help them on the wing. I'll be interested to see Amari Williams because I'll be honest, like having Drexel a bunch in the CAA TV package, they really didn't gear their offense around Williams this past year as opposed to other seasons. They played more on the perimeter. And the reason for that was just like he doesn't have a great perimeter game. He really doesn't possess a perimeter game. So the shot making you could play off of him. He's got to, let's see if Mark Pope and his staff can get him cooking, can get him going into a different dimension offensively. Because if not, that's going to lead him to having some tough times in the SEC at times. You know what I was interested with? I wanted to see if Ole Miss would visit Texas. And that did not happen on the SEC schedule. Texas will go to Ole Miss. It will not be anywhere near what will happen when Ole Miss has to visit Texas. Because when Chris Beard has to visit the Moody Center again in Austin, that is going to be a long-awaited scene. Like the wound is not, fresh in terms of him, how that all ended there. But that's whenever that does happen, which I assume it'll be next year. That'll be an interesting scene too.
Yeah, I don't know. So I think that that's going to be a major storyline and a major conversation piece for us because of the charges that Chris Beard dealt with and the reasons why he was let go by Texas. But I don't know if that'll be something that the Texas fans will like. What I mean, it's not. What are they going to do? Boo him? Get mad at him? Like I think that they wanted him there, and then they realized that they couldn't have him there because of the legal issues that he was dealing with, right? But what will be interesting is that like they basically renovated and built the Moody Center
That's
in
my
Chris
point.
Beard's in Chris Beard's vision. So like it'll be like walking in to being the ex-husband and walking into your ex-wife's house. Well, the new husband has like, oh, I've moved the TV over to this wall. And now that we have this kind of furniture and now that the refrigerator has been put over here and the guest room went from upstairs to the basement. So that it'll probably be a little bit awkward for Chris Beard walking into that place.
Hey, well, we've got about 100 seconds. Some tip-in scheduling notes here. St. John's and New Mexico have agreed to a game at Madison Square Garden this upcoming season, Sunday, November the 17th in New York. Richard Pitino against his dad at the Mecca. Are you entertained?
I am always entertained by Richard Pitino. I think he is one of the great personalities in college basketball, and I love that he is on a platform where we can now have him on over and over and over. Like he's hilarious to me. And I can't wait for my favorite running bit on the field of 68 is whenever we have Richard Pitino on any platform, Goodman asks him something about his dad because Goodman thinks that Rick Pitino and him have some kind of longstanding beef where I'm 75% sure that Rick Pitino just doesn't really know who Goodman is or what Goodman's about. He just kind of recognizes the name and the face and like has heard the voice before. He probably is one of those ones where he gets a text from Goodman, and you know how you sometimes have those numbers in your phone that you've gone back and forth with, but you've never quite gotten the relationship to the level where you've saved their name in the phone. You just have like the text thread or like the whatever area code number. That's probably what it is with Rick Pitino and Jeff Goodman, where he texted him, it's like, wait, who's this again? You got to scroll up. Oh, that's this guy. Okay, yeah, I can answer his question.
30 seconds of buy or sell. I'm going to give you 3 teams here. You quickly tell me in 5 seconds whether you're buying or selling this upcoming year. Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, Rutgers. Buy or sell?
I'm buying them because I do believe that they are going to be good enough to get Rutgers into the tournament. And if Rutgers is a tournament team, that's a buy.
Big year for Wes Miller. Are you in on Cincinnati?
I need to see it before I believe it, but I think that Wes Miller is a hell of a basketball coach. So I'm in on them making the tournament. That's what I'm in on.
And last but not least, Georgia. RJ Godfrey, Asa Newell, Blue Kane. Are you seeing it with Georgia?
Oh man. I'm not quite there yet. I'm not there yet with Georgia. I don't know if they have a star.
That's going to do it for us here on the Field of 68 After Dark, where we cover everybody. For Rob Dauster, I'm John Fanta. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're back at it with you on Thursday night.